Time for a new agent tier list. A new agent came out, Waylay, as well as a ton of different changes to various agents. I did just make an agent tier list 2 weeks ago, however I recorded that 2 months ago. It just went through a lot of production issues, including a re-upload, so it just completely killed the video. It is what it is. It's time to reset and redo it. I'm gonna try to make this a little simpler, no crazy editing, just so I can actually get it out within the week that I make it before it becomes completely outdated through a patch or some other update. In case you're new here, to update you on my philosophy, I do agent tier lists based off of the mid ranks, average mid ranks, and for solo duo queue, I actually reach out to Radiants and Immortals and ask them about the tier lists that I compile, and I watch other videos from either pro players or other creators to understand what the landscape is like. I don't just base it off my own opinion strictly, I add my own opinion and I add and shift based off my philosophy, but I don't just kind of solo go through it and just pretend I know everything, because that is a very poor way of making a list and would probably yield really bad results. In the top left corner, I will leave a letter D, C, B, A, or S, so at any time if you're skipping through the video and you see an agent I'm talking about, you're going to see right away what their ranking is in the top left, making it super easy to skim through the video, since I know a lot of you like to do so. With that being said, let's get started with the D tier. Now the D tier is a little bit light. I only have 2 agents that I genuinely believe are D tier currently, based off not just the map pool but their overall position in Valorant, and especially for average ranks in solo duo queue. The first one is Harbor. I'm not going to touch on this too much. This is basically a meme at this point. It is actually a little upsetting because Harbor has a really fun and enticing kit to play around, but he is simply just too weak. There are better options to play, and it is hard to make an impact on Harbor. Right now, he's still very heavily dependent on certain team comps and executes on strategies, which really only ever happen in pro play when they have a specific idea in mind. The odds of you ever doing something like that in solo and duo is pretty much none, so taking Harbor as is, he's just not the greatest pick and a very weak agent at the moment. His companion, another smoke agent, is Viper. Viper literally from the top all the way to the bottom, but now has been at the bottom for a long time. Viper is weak even in pro play. Better than solo duo, don't get me wrong, but still not very substantial. Viper herself also needs a buff. Similarly, we know Viper is a very fun agent, very unique, and it sucks that these 2 smoke agents, probably the most unique in the way you can set up their smokes and have setups, are both the weakest. So I am hoping that we see some buffs across the board for these 2. They've been out of meta forever in my opinion, Harbor even longer, but for now these 2 are the D tier, the worst agents in the game in my opinion. Next up, we've got the C tier. Let's start it off with Chamber. Now Chamber, we all know the Chamber meta, we all know that he slowly fell off. Now Chamber himself is still not a terrible agent. The thing about C is that from D to C tier, there's still a substantial jump. Anyone in C tier is just below average, but not just a terrible pick. Like, if you play very well with that agent, you will still find impact, and certain maps or situations can call for these agents. While D tier, I actually think they just need Riot's help. That's my genuine opinion. With that being said, Chamber's a great way to lead onto that, because Chamber, for example, if you have amazing aim, basically Smurf level, you can carry the team with Chamber. He has enough impact, but he is too niche. You are going to have trouble having reliable impact as Chamber in a solo duo situation where you're trying to climb the ranks. If you just want to be able to sway the game regardless of your inconsistent aim, which most of us have, Chamber's not going to be that first pick, since all of his abilities obviously lean on having great aim since they're guns. It's that simple. Of course, if you are great at sniping, his ult, his op, the op and TP, that is strong. You can find picks and you can get pretty reliable on that, but that's why he's C, because he is kind of that one trick pony where you have to focus on learning how to do that as effectively as possible to find value. That's why he's starting us off at the bottom of C, in my opinion. Next up, we got to talk about Breach. Now, Breach is kind of simple. I think his utility is insane. I think that, like, with good executes, he can absolutely help steamroll the enemy team. And honestly, in the mid ranks, it's even harder for the enemies to deal with it. However, it all hinges not on you just being a good Breach, but a lot of team synergy. I don't think he himself as a solo player is technically bad. It's just that so much of what makes him great definitely scales with good teamwork. And let's be honest, we're talking about strictly good teamwork. He's going to be brought down. He's going to have to be brought down in a solo duo focused tier list just because of that. I don't think inherently he's bad. It's just that, man, you need a good team to utilize him properly. And that's truly why I'm putting him in C tier. Following this up, we're going to talk about Astra, because Astra, I just want to connect to Breach. Same idea. I don't think Astra herself has weak util. She has a lot of different options. I've seen great Astra players with various different setups being able to adjust on the fly and have quite substantial impact on the team. So not as bad as Breach, but with that being said, I still put Astra in C tier because I do believe that Astra still relies heavily on teamwork. And to be honest, this list also has to be put in a perspective. In a solo duo scenario, you have to think of agents that can still have some amount of carry potential. And someone like Astra, you should be IGLing, sitting closer to the backlines, using your util to set up your team, which isn't very solo duo carry heavy. And keep in mind, carry, the term, doesn't only just mean you're gonna go in and frag out. It means you can reliably carry even with your util. And I genuinely believe there's just a lot of other agents where you can kind of do a lot simpler executes and have value every single round, regardless of how your team plays. But Breach and Astra, both of which sort of just get brought down by you can't be willy-nilly with your util and find value. You need to be smart, you need to be consistent, and then you need your team to follow up. So those two really get dragged down because of that simple fact. Next up, we got Sage, and Sage is always a little bit of a contending one. Sage has just been consistently nerfed with not much of a lifeline thrown her way. Sage herself can still be played, especially on particular maps, and find consistent util. That's the one good thing, but still, even with that being said, I feel like there's just better options. Sage is still currently underpowered, not only in my tier list, but in most people's tier list, and I don't think that can be overlooked. Sage needs a little bit of a buff when compared to the other agents you can select. She is quite literally only brought down from B to C just because there are better options. It is that simple. She's not over hard to play, and she does have some benefits. I do think she's still good on some maps. I do think that if you get sneaky with her wall, you can do a lot of sneaky plays. And I would say, like, I would put her B tier in like gold and lower, but then I just feel she falls off quicker and quicker as you climb into the higher ranks. I know plat's not high, but I think you know what I mean. If we're just putting gold as the center rank or plat as the center rank, you scale on the above center, she falls off quicker. You scale on the below center, you can find more value. So I would put her like bottom B or upper C, just because obviously if you're like silver player and you're rushing to throw down your wall to get a free plant, it will work in that rank, while the higher ranks will obviously just shoot down your wall. I don't know why, but there's a lot of very simple site executes which are kind of brain dead with the wall that just work in the lower rank. So I can't completely dismiss her on this list. So depending on your rank, she does shift a bit for sure. Last but not least, we got Brimstone. Usually I put Brim in B just for some consistency. Brim is very, very easy, bringing up how consistent you can be with his util. That's the big benefit of Brim. You can learn a couple lineups and then find a lot of consistency with all three of his main util. Of course, his ult as well, very simple for post plant and delaying. So that usually is why I put Brim in B. He's a perfect solid agent. However, with Bind being rotated out, there's no way to really get around the fact that he falls a little bit short, and there's just a lot of really strong smoke agents, two in particular that we will get to, that sort of dominate, kicking him down from B to C. But similar to Sage, I would bounce them between the two. His biggest benefit is that he's simple and you can do a lot of sneaky plays with those smokes, but then there's just much better smoke agents, so he gets kicked down to C, and then on top of that, Bind again not being in rotation is a little bit of a yikes for Brimstone. You already heard me say last but not least, which means next we go into the B tier. B tier is actually not a huge amount of agents to go through. I do think some people are going to throw hands with me on some of them, but you know, let's get into it. Let's start with KO. Suppress is sort of climbing up the ranks in utility that a team needs, which helps KO climb up a bit, especially with the ult as well as the knife. I also believe he's overall simple to find utility with, so I have to think of consistency, right? Like, you throw out that knife, it has such a wide range, there's actually a good chance, if there is anyone pushing fast, pushing slow, whatever, you're going to get information back to yourself. You're going to suppress someone, you're going to find some amount of benefit, even if you don't think too hard about how you use that util. You feel they're pushing hard, you can throw down that molly, block off, delay, etc. on defense, and same thing on attack. If you throw and they're clearly stacked on one site, you guys can do a very simple decision to quick rotate altogether. That's the one thing. There's that simplicity and consistency that brings him up to B tier, but you can't go higher than B tier because there's definitely room for stronger picks. But his downsides aren't super downside to bring him down to C, if that makes sense. His negatives aren't substantial enough to bring him down, but his positives aren't strong enough to bring him up. And that's the thing about B. B is that perfect middle good where they get stretched between pros and cons that land him in the center, and KO is perfect with that. He'll just fall short, especially as you climb the ranks. Like, let's be honest, like, people don't play around his ult well enough in the lower ranks. If you're a KO and you ult, you may run in thinking you're not going to die after being shot, but when's the last time you remember being rezzed as a KO if you're below plat? If I swear, if people genuinely say they get rezzed all the time, then my bad. I barely saw the mid ranks to low ranks res KO, because usually the KO in those ranks also doesn't play with positioning and trading in mind, if that makes sense. They pop the ult and they rush in like they're just straight up initiating with that ult, and as if the ult's gonna push everyone off of sight, but their Vandals will still one-shot everyone to the head. So I don't feel like they execute very well, and KO still does benefit heavily with team play. If you watch someone like Toto, you'll see exactly why. Your long flashes are very good for setting up your team, your ult to play for trades and picks and then get revived after, etc. So yeah, down the middle is perfect. B is literally perfect for KO. Next up we have Skye. I know Skye used to reign once upon a time in S tier, but it's been a minute, and Skye is very similar, a perfect middle. She has enough util to find consistent impact, and I'm pretty partial to Skye. I actually think Skye is a great pick in solo duo, but it's kind of similar in the fact where a lot of people have Skye quite low on their tier list, and I'm not allowed to turn a blind eye to a weaker agent just because I think they're substantial. Like, I first wanted to put Skye in A, but since I got advised by multiple people that she does not deserve A, I take that to heart. They are simply better players than me, and I want to deliver at least a decent video to you guys. So I would say Skye in B tier makes perfect sense. The cons just being she's not overall a strong agent right now. Her kit got nerfed and never really rebuffed, and I do believe that she does have enough variety though to bring her up. Like, I don't think she deserves C, because if you think about it, you still have your flash, you still have a dog, you still have a heal, and you still have an ult, all of which you can use consistently. If you just practice her flash alone to change up and variety, you know, add variation to your flash, you're gonna have her flash down really well, and then from there, her dog, and all of us can control it, all of us can find information by initiating with it very safely. Her heal, very simple, AoE, anyone's low, just heal them. It's that simple. You see low health, you heal. And then her ult, you don't think too much about it. You ult, you're going to get info, you're going to be able to initiate with your team. And that's all. I just like her consistency with util, especially in a solo duo mid-rank scenario. Next up we have Fade, and I'm going to put Fade in B tier, and I'm going to reign a lot of what I just said about Skye. I think it's about the consistency of your util. I actually find Skye to be even easier consistency because, you know, when Skye flashes, you get that feedback regardless, so you get extra info. However, with that being said, similar with Fade, if you just ult in that AoE and you initiate together, everything should be A-okay. Now, I just want to say, like, just with Fade, you got to put a little bit more time. Like, learn some eye lineups to find more consistency. You know, Skye, like I said, you throw out that flash, you get that feedback, makes it easier. So just make sure to learn some more eye lineups. It's very easy for anyone to shoot the eye, and I feel like finding the value just takes a slight bit more work than Skye, but similar to Skye, once you get the hang of it, you're going to find that consistency a lot, and you can play for yourself, which is great, right? You can ult for yourself, you can dog for yourself, you can do a lot for yourself. Skye, for example, can't heal herself. Everything Fade has can be used for herself. Even something like the cat, I think it is for Fade. And you throw that out, you can lead it, and then the minute it locks in, you can swing with it. Skye, you are stun locked until you throw it out and stun the enemy. So if they're at a great distance, you can't initiate as well for yourself, if that makes sense. So Fade is a solid B pick, especially in the context of a solo duo tier list. Next up we have Waylay, which is such a funny agent. The newest agent that everyone said was very, very broken. I felt like she was going to be very strong as well. Has fallen from graces. Some people literally calling her the worst duelist in the game. Some people still saying she's strong. So what's the truth? I would say in the context of solo duo, and for the average player, B makes sense. Now, here's the thing about Waylay. She can't be a solo duelist, and that much is sort of a fact across all ranks, right? If you wanted to try to stomp as many people as possible, you still wouldn't choose Waylay, because what can happen with Waylay is it can be a little bit difficult to find value, in the sense that you can double dash in, get info, and then jump back out to safety without finding much of anything. Like, you will have understood where they are, but you wasted your entire kit and nothing happened. That's the thing. However, in the middle to low ranks, it is possible you can like dash up and fall behind them and get free picks, just because they won't be able to react fast enough. They might whiff on you, so you get a pick then jump out. But this is going to fall off a cliff the minute you start climbing the ranks. because people will keep track of you, people will one tap you once you dash in, and there's nothing you can do, right? Jett sets herself up by dashing in with the smoke and getting ready for it to drop, try to beat people out via positioning, which you can do in Waylay, but people can track you. And the minute you see someone tracking you with a gun, you're going to jump out. So you would have wasted your entire kit for some info, but not much else. And this is why Waylay is overall very weak. With that being said, I feel that she plays pretty well as an initiation duelist. So in the sense of if you ult, dash in, take space, it's a little bit easier for low ranks to just follow that, right? You calm, I'm going in, follow me. As long as everyone follows you, like there isn't much complexity to her kit, which is why I'd like to put her in B tier, as well as the obviously insta cast on that slow. Like it's really strong. Like once you hit someone with that and you like just wide swing them, they're most likely not going to hit you. It's a very strong debuff, which I enjoy. I still find her overall pretty reliable, but if I were to be completely transparent, I do see why she teeters on like CB versus like BA, because there's just better duelists. That's the thing. There's just duelists who are more consistent. So even I had a hard time knowing for sure if I wanted to put her in B or C. So instead I put her right in the middle, and I've given my thoughts because she's still a new agent. We still need to see how things progress, and I would love people's opinion on how they've been feeling playing or playing against Waylay. And this is why the B tier is a little bit contentious, because next up we have Neon, and honestly 1-to-1 I think Neon's better than Waylay, just to put that clear. Neon doesn't teeter between B and C and not exactly sure. Neon is solid B, and only fell from A because of the nerfs that we can't ignore. Neon is now a little less consistent thanks to those nerfs and the fact that even if you practice all you want for the slide and shoot, it's not as reliable anymore, and that was sort of her one trick pony, and now other duelists are just more consistent than Neon. Yes, Neon can be a demon, especially in eco round, and if you learn that movement, you can honestly flex on people quite hard with the movement plus shotgun. We've all seen the Neon clips. Neon still has her place, but I would say it's perfect to put her in B because a lot of her positives that pull her up to maybe A come from tons of hours, tons of practice, tons of mechanical skill, which is fantastic, but doesn't exactly bode well for quote-unquote reliability. So that would be her negative that is dragging her down. But Neon, great B pick. I don't think there's too much to argue about here, and I think the positioning sort of makes sense in the context of other duelists. Now, historically, in a solo duo tier list, I've always gotten flamed for this one next agent, but I will stand strong with putting Reyna in B tier, and it's very simple. The absolute con of dragging Reyna down is that her util is useless, literally useless in a team sense. I understand it's solo duo, but the fact is if you're not clicking heads, you are useless, and it's why people get flamed for playing Reyna, because if you're not playing well aim-wise, there's nothing you can fall back on. There's no, oh, it's okay, just set us up to win. Help set us, right now we're aiming better than you, set us up for victory. The flash barely matters, it's one of the worst flashes in the game, and then the rest is useless. However, with this alone, most people are putting Reyna in D or C tier, just with that negative alone, because it is a terrible negative. Valorant is util heavy right now, and it's become more and more util heavy as time has gone on. But, yes, if you truly believe you're better than everyone else, if you truly believe you deserve a higher rank and you can mechanically diff everyone, choose Reyna and you can test yourself. Because yes, if I gave a Radiant a challenge to go from Iron back to Radiant, especially from Iron up to like Ascendant, they could only choose Reyna and like 1v5. So for that reason, that's her one trick ponies. Like it absolutely, if you're aiming like a god, you will become a god in the sense that you just will not die. You will become a raid boss. You will jump back and forth. Everyone knows, everyone's seen the clips. So that's the thing. Reyna has the craziest negative with the highest amount of positive that swing both ways so aggressively that to me, there's nowhere else to put her but B tier. Because she can either be D or she can be S, depending on the situation. Next up, we hit the A tier, and the A tier is honestly a quite solid list. There's one particular agent like I got humbled on because I was putting her very, very low. Actually, there's a couple of people, but let's get into it. First up, we have Jett, the first duelist we'll talk about in A tier, and honestly, I think it makes a lot of sense. I've spoken about Jett quite a lot, and I reiterate similar points, but Jett is quite versatile in how you can play her. It's a balanced duelist while leaning strong, which is fantastic. You can smoke and dash in to take space that a lot of enemies will have trouble fighting against. You can still updraft over a ton of things. If you get really good with the knives, that will solidify her in her A tier because obviously you know, updrafting and headshotting someone in the head will always tilt the enemy team. You just need to get good with her. I won't say the knives are absolutely easy to use. They're not. Learn that one thing. You'll be consistent on A. If you want her to lean towards S, learn your op and dash. Get good with the op, and there you go. You have a lot of ways to play her. On defense, you've got the op and dash, which is really, really annoying. On ecos, you've got the ult, which is really, really annoying. In every other round, you've got a ton of playmaking potential for taking space, and that's why she is a strong duelist. Only thing bringing her down is you need some mechanical skill, but you don't need as much mechanical skill as Neon, at least from a consistency standpoint. Like Neon, you need to actually grind her movement to find that consistency. Jet, it's more linear. As you get better, you find more value, but you'll never feel super useless just because you don't know how to move that well. Next up, we have Deadlock. Historically, I always put Deadlock pretty low and then get flamed for it. And you know what? I'm still not partial to Deadlock. Just this is similar to Sky in reverse. I'm putting Deadlock in A out of just trying not to be dumb, because if everyone's putting her A, and if, you know, Mortal Radiance advise me that she's A, I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna listen. I don't think what they say can convince me fully. I think Deadlock's like trips are just very, very weak overall. I know people have learned to play around them. I just feel like, at least in the sense of being a sentinel, I don't think she's super consistent. I feel the wall is great, but more of just an inconvenience. However, what people were trying to explain is that the ult is really great, and then furthermore, the net, the grav, the net is so strong, and they just buffed it, and that alone brings her up a ton. And you know what? If they say so, I will put it. I will put it here. However, if I just want to reiterate my point a little bit, if you look at Deadlock's win rate, it is quite linearly below 50% from like Iron up to Ascendant, and only jumps to above 50% Immortal Plus. So I do feel it's her positioning and strength in pro play that people are defending. When people see the pros play so well, they'll defend Deadlock. And you know what? I still think Deadlock's solid. I think I've always overhated her and will admit that. I just feel like in a solo duo, I'm going to put her in A due to public pressure. I gotta be honest. I don't know if she's consistently the best pick if you're trying to rank up and you're playing in the mid ranks, but she definitely still has a strong presence, at least in Ascendant Plus. And she's obviously still a strong agent and just got buffed. So, yeah, you know, I can yap all I want. She's still A tier. Moving on from there, another agent that I overhated and did very dirty, which is Vice. I still don't think Vice is absolutely the best pick, but she is still currently a strong agent, and this explanation actually made sense to me when I talked to other people in Mortal Radiance. It's really due to her razor wires. Her ult is overall still weak in my opinion, but will have a bigger impact on the lower ranks, where when they get switched to the pistols, they might even just run away. You know what I mean? Like, they don't really want to fight with the pistols, and you'll have a bigger impact, which brings up her effectiveness. But those razors are very, very strong at delaying. They're not over hard to use. The flash, you set it up, not over hard to use, and you get info when using it. So you get a lot of easy info. That flash is not too hard to mess up after you learn it just a little bit. And then same idea, the razor wires, hard to mess up. They're very effective at slowing people's push. The only thing I would say kind of teeters back and forth is the wall, as well as the ult. Like I mentioned the ult already, but the wall, it's just that I feel a lot of people I've personally seen in the mid ranks have trouble understanding how to use the wall or how to utilize the wall, right? You can't just you can put it behind you in the sense of once it's tripped, you know that someone's behind you, and you've also blocked off their exit. You can also use it for strategic use to isolate someone or map control, but let's be honest, like using that wall sort of scales with rank a bit because it scales with map knowledge, teamwork, and game sense. So that's my only real gripe, but she has a strong kit inherently, and she is consistently ranking high in multiple people's tier list, and Immortal Radiance advised me, so it makes sense. I think she is strong. A makes sense. I'll take the L on that one. I put her too low before. Next up, we have Omen. Omen's traditionally A tier just because, he's always been a strong solo smoker. Like, if you need to fill smokes, Omen is a great pick with only maybe one agent better than him, which you guys probably already know who I'm yapping about, but for the most part, Omen is a strong solo pick. If you've got to play smokes, you can learn Omen because you can actually outplay a lot of teams. You can actually 1v5 as Omen. You can be very sneaky, and anything where you can play mind games, which another agent you guys know of can play mind games, actually has a lot of strength because you can play mind games with any rank across the board. Honestly, the only time Iron Bronze, the mind games don't really work is because they don't end up paying attention to what you're doing. But literally the minute you hit gold and you start climbing, you can trick people a lot. You can have a lot of solo carry potential, and you can still do traditional smokes for your team, which is essential in Valorant. So Omen is a very, 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 very easy A tier. Absolutely super easy A tier. His only actual gripe is the way you'll find consistency with Omen depends on how well you'll start playing with him. But even then, you've got your double smokes that you can throw out for consistency. You can TP in to take space, just play with your team. You got your blind. He's consistent. He has his consistency, and his ult has a ton of playmaking potential that is hard to mess up. All it takes is just a bit of thought process. I'm going to follow it up with Clove immediately because Clove, similarly, very, 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 very strong solo smoker. If you got to play someone, you can play Clove. And Clove, honestly, I still think edges out Omen because it's like Omen with a couple safeguards. Omen, but you can self-sustain, which is heal. Fantastic. Omen, but if you jump in and die, you can still smoke around the area. You know what I mean? Or Omen, but if you jump in and die, you can res yourself with your ult, which I know is hard to be consistent with. But let's say you initiate for your team as a smoker, which I know isn't ideal, but still you go smokes, you go sneaky, you take some space, you call for your team to take site, you die, you can come back and still play with your team. That's great. You know what I mean? So I just feel it's Clove. Or sorry, it's Omen with some like safety guards. So that's why I think Clove edges out Omen overall in a solo duo scenario. And I just feel Clove is overall just stronger due to those consistencies. But they can throw punches against one another because Omen got the mind games, which I think is very strong and underrated for solo duo situations. So they can throw punches to each other. I just think Clove is a little bit of a safer play. Next up, we got Gecko. I'm sort of now going to be known as someone who maybe loves Gecko too much. I keep putting Gecko pretty high, and I think it's just in the context of how I tier this list. I think Gecko consistently can perform well because of the amount of util you can throw, the amount of util you can repick up, and the minute you learn some of the util, like, you're gonna find value. You're gonna find value with throwing down the mosh pit. You're gonna find value with finding a flash that you can throw really high and it'll do the rest of the work, and then you can pick it up and do it again. You know what I mean? Like, you can find value, mess up your utility, then repick them up and try to find value again. So overall, it makes Gecko super safe. And that's not speaking with the next two things about Gecko, which I love, which is the ult, an insane initiation that everyone wants to run away from. Especially not in the high ranks. People don't group up to shoot it down quicker, meaning they sort of scatter and you're gonna find a pick and you're gonna be able to repush. And then if you find the pick on site, repush and plant, you get an ult again for post plant. This was the sickest thing. That's the sickest thing for solo duo, especially in the mid ranks. And then on top of that, Wingman, man. Wingman is very impressive. You just need to learn a little bit of your game sense to understand when to use Wingman, and you can either stun or, of course, he's the little plant and diffuse machine, which adds so much pressure. I'm never going to say no matter what rank you are. If Wingman is on spike, you have to peek. If Wingman's on spike, you've got to make a play. It forces pressure, and anytime you have an agent, in my opinion, which you can control what's going to happen next, it makes it easier to play them. If you throw Wingman on the diffuse and you just controlled the fact that you are going to force them to react, you're going to force the enemy to react, because unlike fake, not faking, you don't know if they're going to peek, you don't know if they're going to use util only, etc., you can force their hand. If they have post plant, they're going to have to use it on Wingman instead of you. Same thing with the plant. It's a lot easier to get someone else to take the risk on planting, and then all 5 people or all 4 people, whoever much is left, can just work on securing this site. I like Gecko a lot. I think he's really strong. I wish I could play Gecko better. Next up, we got Cypher. I used to put Cypher, like always, in S, but I think, again, in the context of my tier list, I maybe used to overthrow Cypher up there just because he was S across everyone's tier list. Maybe it was just kind of programmed in my head to follow the trend there. With that being said, I think Cypher's still very strong, so you have to put him in A, because when it comes to securing down a site, if you're a Cypher, especially in the mid-rank, solo duo, you securing down a site, you can delay for a long time and have your team rotate, or you might even just have people run away. People might just instant rotate because they don't want to deal with you, again, especially in those mid-ranks. With that being said, there's sort of a flip side that I never dove into too much until I talked to an Immortal Radiant, which is just the fact that he does have that thing where, like, a lot of people, if you're a gold Cypher player and you're securing down a site and they don't rush your site, sometimes that gold Cypher player loses all their value, meaning they struggle to adapt to the situation if they do not push their site, which is pulling back that util, changing up the what they're going to do next, etc. And same thing, Cypher on attack, learning to Cypher attack can be difficult. So Cypher actually retains his A tier status in the higher end ranks, like at least Diamond Plus. And then actually I understood where the Immortal Radiant was coming from in the lower ranks, where if you're a lower ranked Cypher, you really need to understand how to find the the utilization of his kit, and then on top of that, a big part of his utilization is information, but information is only useful when played with, meaning distributed to the team through comms, and then played together through what's happening next, meaning we have this info, what's the correct play next, which just doesn't happen, even in gold, doesn't happen very much. So Cypher is actually being pulled up by the higher ranks and the immense amount of utility and the immense amount of value it has in solo duo in the higher ranks over the lower to mid ranks, which I didn't really have that perspective before. Next up, we got Phoenix. Now, admittedly, I am a little bit partial to Phoenix in my tier list, particularly the solo duo tier list. I need to first admit, though, there are other duelists which can find a higher consistency, right? We talked about Jet at the start of A. Jet can probably find higher consistency than Phoenix. However, Phoenix is still very, very well positioned after his rework to have an impact and in my opinion, have an impact even if you're not playing the best. Learning to use your walls and initiate as Phoenix, similar to Jet, can have an impact even if you're not completely fragging out. If it's not your aim day is what I'm trying to say. With that being said, Phoenix still has his high value from sort of, what do I like to call it? Like kit dumping, meaning you'll like ult wall and flash to secure a site, but run out of a lot of util early until getting a couple kills and then being able to reset. However, having that fallback, right? Having the fact that you still could heal yourself, having the fallback that when you ult and die, you do come back with your, you just have to be a little bit more safe in the mid ranks because not everyone will watch your body, but still you can ult and come back with your health and shield, etc. Those fallbacks are really, really helpful, especially the lower the rank is. They become very, 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 very nice to have. And Phoenix does have a certain amount of consistency, which I like, and he definitely has a powerful position to completely solo carry. I like the fact you can wall, I like the fact that you can map control but still frag out, still self-sustain, etc. He's a very well balanced agent in the sense that he can do a lot and have a lot of different plays at his disposal no matter what time during the match you're in. This is very similar to ISO, the next duelist that I am putting in A tier. ISO is a strong duelist. We've seen his rise of being overpowered and then his fall again for being over nerfed, but recently they've made that change where you can now literally suppress people when you're throwing, like I said with KO, suppress is becoming more valuable in Valorant, and I think being able to throw out a suppress like that through the wall, etc., is going to make it very, very strong. You're going to be, you if you're especially in the mid ranks and you got to push a sentinel, being able to throw out that suppress, hopefully get that going, then throw out the wall and then push as a team is comforting. As a team in a solo duo, throwing out that wall, for example, is comfort. People will follow that wall knowing they're protected, and it's just psychologically easier. And that's the one thing. In a solo duo environment, the easier it is to execute a play, the easier it is for the team to understand what's happening, the more consistently you'll play as a team, the more consistently you play as a team, the more likely you're going to win. Because that's the one biggest thing. You as a team making less mistakes than the enemy is what, for the most part, climbs you up the rank until you're like at an Ascendant Immortal level, if that makes sense. I think that's pretty easy to understand. And then, of course, he's still ISO, he's still a duelist. You can still isolate, you can still refresh your shield, you can still play aggressive, you can still solo carry. I still don't love his ult. I think that brings him down a bit. I still don't like the I'm going to ult the enemy and isolate. Now, luckily, if you're smart in the way you save it, you'll save it in post-plant and delay as much as you can, hopefully win. If you're in a 2 versus 1 situation and it's, it's before the half or it's really important round to win, you can ult and then have the enemy run. So even if you lose your 1v1, you get a free kill. So it's like an absolute free trade. You learn to use your ult smart, and he's a very easy A tier duelist. The next agent and the last agent for A tier is someone I'm very partial to, which is Yoru. That's because I mainly only ever play Yoru. I've always advocated for Yoru for a long time, but I still always placed him along the scale of where he is in the meta. Right now, people are overhyping him like crazy, and it's because he is strong. I mentioned the whole mind game mentality. Like, you can really mess with people. Like, especially in solo duo where there's more chaos, you can mess with people, you can be sneaky, you can get a lot of cheeky plays. That's how I get a lot of my kills, being very sneaky. No reason to take 50-50s, and Yoru allows you to take less and less 50-50s consistently. That's what his kit is for, and it's fantastic. You can lurk TP, you can fake, you can do a lot, and you can do it in a solo duo situation, and you can do it in the mid ranks. You can do a lot of crazy plays. Like, Harbor can have insane plays, but you need a lot of teamwork. Yoru can have a lot of insane plays, but you can do it alone, which is amazing. His biggest downside is like the what you're gonna like understanding his kit and utilizing it. Like, you know how I said Neon, you really gotta learn his movement. Like, I only play Yoru and I still mess up so much of my kit, which is not a great look. You know what I mean? It's not the best. Like, it's still easy to mess up your flash. You'll see anyone, even Yoru mains, mess up their flash. You may see them mess up other util because you've got to do a lot. You got to throw out a lot, and that's his biggest fumble. I've seen people putting him S right now, quite literally S. And yes, you can carry hard as Yoru. You can make a massive impact as Yoru. But since my tier list is still across the rank solo duo first, I gotta say, like, he's gotta lose some amount of points for consistency. You can mess up your consistency a lot because of simple mess ups on his kit. It's just he's so brought up by the fact that you can make so many plays, you can do so many different things, you can change it up in so many different ways, and the one key thing is the less predictable you are, the better chance you'll have of winning, right? Changing up plays each and every round, being in different positions, having different strategies is fantastic. And with Yoru, you can sort of cultivate these because of his different TPs. His ult turns you invisible. Like, there's just so many different ways you can easily, which is a big keyword here, easily change up your round-to-round gameplay, which a lot of other agents, it's a little bit harder. And if you're in the mid ranks, let's be honest, we're all predictable here. We end up playing, we choose a site, and a lot of times we stay on that site for a long time. So change it up. Make sure you're changing it up every round, and Yoru helps do that. So easy A tier. Next up, we got the S tier agents. As we enter the S tier agents, they are sort of all the pinnacle of what I've mentioned up until now. Not being overly hard to play helps a ton. Having a lot of consistency helps a ton, right? Being able to be consistently valuable to your team helps a ton. And then they're kind of the top of the ceiling, meaning how much overall impact can they have on the game. Sort of puts them at the tippity top, and I'll explain why I put them in S, as well as any influence I had in the rating. So let's start with the only duelist in S tier. This is the only one that's heavily influenced by other people, which is Raze. So people are saying Raze is just the best duelist in the game at the moment, and it comes a lot though from the initiation that Raze has and the overwhelming amount of map control she can take with her utility. The satchel movement is kind of pinnacle in the sense of how fast you can move, how far you can move, and this is the big one, how you can move. Meaning, like, you know, like a jet dash or waylay dash, right? You're still straight line. You can literally like make an S, a circle, a square, a triangle, a star. You can swirl. You can, you know, and you can do it on any dimension. You can do it low to the ground, high to the ground, mid in the ground. You have the most amount of movement control as Raze. With that being said, this S tier is heavily influenced by other tier lists as well as yapping from Mortal Radiance because for me, the one thing that would kind of knock her into A tier is just the consistency aspect. Meaning, like, you either get very consistent at your satchels and very consistent at executing onto a site. Like, you're going to double satchel, get a kill, nade, make sure to secure. And if you get good at that, yes, Raze can solo take a site and absolutely allow her team to flood in. And that is so valuable. But, like, consistency, that's where she's losing some points. Because the consistency on doing that isn't just brain dead. You've got to get consistent to make sure you have her up in S tier, but I'll allow outside influence to put her in S tier for me. You know what I mean? The other three are no-brainers, though. Seriously, no-brainers. Moving from Raze, we have Taeho. Taeho, I yapped about before. Still S tier. Taeho got some nerfs. It doesn't matter. Taeho is still very, very strong. I don't really care what anyone says. Like, you just need a little bit of game sense, and you can find value every single round as Taeho. If I'm fragging out, I'll find even more value. If I'm not, my utility can still find immense value. And that's the thing. To me, he's the pinnacle of high value utility and high consistency. That's the real reason. You can consistently find high value regardless of how well you're playing that day. And the less you have to be consistent and the more your agent helps you be consistent, the better. And then you put on top of that, the utility itself is so strong. Taeho is an easy S tier, very easy S tier. And to be honest here, the next two roll into my philosophy there. The next one is Killjoy. Same idea here. A lot of, even like, same thing with Taeho. I just need to put them together for a second. And Killjoy, high value with high consistency, and you can change it up. So Teho, you can be in different parts of the map, putting your util literally anywhere. It's literally a map where you put everything. You can consistently change it up and find high value. Same thing with Killjoy. Learn just a little harder in the sense of learn some setups. But if you're a Killjoy player, you're learning setups quick. That's the thing. You're learning setups real quick. Different setups, changing up your turret position, changing up your utility position. Even if you're not playing the best, you can absolutely reduce 50-50s with your utility and peek off your turret and find little crazy little head glitches where you hide behind your turret. And even then, you can just let your util do a lot of the damage or a lot of the holding back, and you can do it consistently. Unlike Cypher 2, if you don't get pushed, moving, I believe, is a lot easier because retaking and playing attack on Killjoy makes a lot more sense for the average person. You've got your alarm bot for the flank, and it's invisible. I don't know. Killjoy has high consistency and reduces the amount of messing up you can do and always finds value. Killjoy is, in my opinion, always going to be one of the best agents just inherently because of her kit. And of course now Teho doesn't easily take out her freaking ult with a click of the button. So that helped. That was her biggest weakness in the last tier list. So that helped a ton bring Killjoy back up to the S tier. Last but not least, we have Sova. And to be honest, it's very similar to what I've been saying. It's the utility impact to how easy it is to pull off. So the dart, bounces, lineups, etc. So that's the variety option, how you can actually use the ability. Then you learn some basic dart locations. You can scan entire sites. You can help initiate very simply. It's recharged, like it comes back. Like it's hard to mess up the dart once you get at least somewhat the hang of it, and it finds so much value. And that's just the dart, right? The drone, you know how I was talking about like Sky, some of the amount of consistencies you can keep finding info and what's going on. The drone is that, but it flies, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can get over stuff. Like even if a sage wall comes up, you can see, is it just sage there? What else are you dealing with on the site? You can just throw it over. So like the drone, high consistency. Shock dart might be the only one where the consistency comes from skill. So as in the better you get. But even then, man, you don't need to do some crazy lineups with the shock dart. You can just use it to clear a corner. You already cleared all of site. There's one corner missing. Double shock dart it, and you just know it's clear or they're dead. It's that simple. So it's the consistency of Sova. Then his ult, either scan someone and eliminate them, free pick, very easy, very nice, or save it for post plant or any other situation. It's his simplicity while remaining very high value. It's very simple to understand why Sova is already high in most people's tier lists, but why in my tier list with my philosophy, he gets up there quite consistently. He's easy S in my opinion. But yeah, that's the tier list. You're going to agree and disagree with a lot, and that's not really a big deal. I give you my opinions, my philosophy. Make sure to watch everyone else who's better than me's tier list, as well as talk to people who are better than me to challenge my opinion and then form it into this video. So you can let me know what you think. I think either way, it's not so wildly off where it's useless. It just, a lot of people will adjust some agents depending on how they play and what they think, and that's okay. Hopefully some people found it useful. Thanks for watching.